Good evening, everyone. I am Allison Ladd. I serve as the Deputy Mayor for Economic and Housing Development for Mayor Raj J. Baraka. It is wonderful to see you this evening, and we're so glad you tuned in to this emergency rental assistance how to apply session. It's extremely important for us to be able to share with you this program and the how to apply session because we have up to $14 million available. That's for residents in our city that are renting. We know that our city is 78% renters. So many of you are going to want to access this program. And today the application went live. So you absolutely, it's so glad that you tuned in so that we can explain to you how to apply to this emergency rental assistance program. Also, as you may know, this program is part of a larger economic equitable recovery plan of Mayor Baraka. We know that COVID-19 has hit our city, the city of Newark, harder than other places across the state and across the country. Black and brown families, businesses, and our residents here in the city of Newark have been harder hit than other places where we've seen higher unemployment rates, as well as businesses that have been struggling during this time. So Mayor Baraka in this city and our council, we want to find ways to help all of you during this time where the pandemic has hit us the hardest. The emergency rental assistance will pay for back rent for approximately 4,000 Newark households. So 4,000 Newark households are going to be able to access this program. So again, we're so glad you tuned in so that you can learn how to apply. The funding will be eligible to pay up to 12 months assistance for households that are qualified and selected for the program. So you can go up to 12 months of assistance, and it can go back to March of 2020. So we can go all the way, look back to March of 2020 for being able to provide assistance to you should you need it under this rental assistance program. And again, applications are open now, and you can go to newarkcovid19.com and you'll be able to access the application and be able to apply today, because today the applications are open. At this time, I'd like to introduce Gerard Crowder, the manager of the Office of Affordability and Sustainable Housing for the City of Newark. Gerard has been leading these efforts for many months, including all during COVID, but especially has been putting together this new program that'll be available to all of you again starting today. So at this point, I'd really like to turn it over to Gerard Crowder to start the how to apply session. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we're so glad that you are with us. And we look forward to seeing you again in person soon. So Gerard, thanks so much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Certainly appreciate your leadership and your work to get us started in this program this evening. And so we want to thank you for joining us, and we are very much excited to bring to you what is essentially part two of a how to apply session for this third round of the Newark Emergency Rental Assistance program. Hopefully many of you were able to tune into us last week when we were able to launch and provide a how-to session for landlords. And this week, we are thrilled to be able to now open the application to tenants. It should be noted, we will have a lot of information for you this evening. We will walk you through the application. There will be many, many questions that we'll try to make sure we cover, but we'll also make sure that we provide you with resources that will go well beyond this program. Just a bit of a note, this session, just as last week's session, will be found here on our Facebook Live page, and so you can access it. You can go back and review it as often as you would like, in addition to other resources that I'm going to lay out for you this evening. So I mentioned that the landlord application opened last Monday, July 19th. The tenant application opened 9 a.m. this morning, July 26th. Both will remain open through the period of Friday, September 10th of this year. And so now both can both register and apply at the portal. And so we're going to show you exactly where that is and walk you through each step of the way. Do want to kind of mention a few of the improvements that we're able to provide this round. Previous rounds had a different funding source, although federal government. What we, along with the federal government, has tried to do, quite frankly, is learn from previous rounds. As you all know, we are in a very challenging time. It's been quite an interesting past year and a half. Many of us did not know how long this would last and what the impact would be. So here we are in July of 2021, rolling out a third round. This round is funded through dollars from the U.S. Treasury Department. As such, there have been a few enhancements, again, things that we've learned from previous rounds and at this point. So one of those enhancements is the fact that we really want to engage landlords as much as possible in order to facilitate payments to tenants. However, payments can be made directly to tenants in the event we're not able to connect with landlords. If we kind of take a step back and really think about what this program is designed to offer, it's designed to offer relief to tenants as well as landlords, but ultimately facilitate housing stability for many Newark residents who are behind on rent and under the fear and threat of eviction. And so we really want to make sure that we can get dollars in the hands of tenants, even if not directly to landlords, in order to ensure that we are able to provide that resource. And so what we're going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that I take us to our one-stop shop for all things COVID-19, right? How will you apply? Well, the first thing you will do is we will go to the city's portal for all things COVID-19.com related. And so that email address, if you're not familiar by now, is newarkcovid19.com. Again, newarkcovid19.com. There you will find information and resources in order to help Newark residents throughout this trying time. Everything from, of course, health-related information to employment information, and yes, even rental assistance. And so as we access this page, which also can be accessed if you go to the main page for the City of Newark government, newarknj.gov, you can click on the link for this page, which will bring you here where we can examine all things COVID-19 and be taken to where we find out all about emergency rental assistance, as well as access both the landlord registration as well as the tenant application itself, right? Again, highly recommend you reviewing this website for a number of resources in addition to rental assistance. So if we go ahead and we click on that link, that takes us to the landing page for the application. Now, before we move on to the application, you'll see it's displayed very prominently for the tenant application and landlord pre-registration. There's a wealth of information here. Among those things, or those improvements or enhancements to this round, is also the fact that, again, because we are seeking to provide housing stability to as many residents as possible, unlike our previous rounds, which provided funding for 1 to 2 months, given that we did not know how long the pandemic would last, we now have the opportunity to provide up to 12 months rent, a back rent for eligible households. And in some instances, on a case-by-case basis, 3 months of prospective rent. And I'll show you during the application process exactly how you can register your need and desire to receive a prospective rent. As we mentioned, landlords are able to pre-register. What this allows is for a landlord to enter his or her information, which will hopefully correspond with tenant information once they submit an application. And then given the coordination of the two sets of information, we can then quickly dispatch payment. And so the purpose of this is to make this round much more efficient. Hopefully we will have tenants and landlords cooperating together in order to make sure that payment gets out quickly. As we proceed, we take a look at key dates and other information, right? So fortunately, we are beyond the 2 opening dates. Now the portal is open for both landlords and tenants. You can both apply through Friday, September 10th. Portal closes at 6 p.m. It's important to note, again, that this application program is designed the way it is so we can quickly dispatch payment. We would like to make sure we can issue payments within 30 and no longer than 60 days in some cases of the submission of both the registration to a landlord, application to a tenant. It's important to note that landlords, of course, have this website as a resource and can also call the call center, which is available to landlords and tenants, but landlords can call 866-484-9033. I imagine I'll be reviewing that number a little later on again tonight as one of the several layers of resources. Tenants can get information regarding this application here at this website, along with the call center number, as well as at community-based organizations located throughout the city of Newark. There's one in each one of the 5 wards where tenants, if necessary, if preferable, you can call and make an appointment and visit those locations. I will list these locations again at the end of the event. Of course, Clinton Hill Community Action, located in the South Ward, Ironbound Community Corporation in the East Ward, La Casa de Don Pedro, located in the North Ward, New Community Corporation in the Central Ward, and Unified Vailsburg Services Organization, located in the West Ward. There, you can receive, again, assistance with completing an application. What's also very important is that we want to make sure that as many Newark residents who start an application are able to complete an application. And so therefore there's the call center if there are any questions regarding what's required, in addition to, again, these community-based organizations to provide in-person assistance. We want, of course, make sure that everyone knows who is eligible. And so therefore we know who to apply. What's extremely important, first and foremost, is that you be a Newark resident, right? This relief is for Newark tenants located in the city of Newark. Have a household that is at or below what's called 80% of the area median income here for the city of Newark. That is a metric that's used to determine residents who are considered a low income, and we will actually reference a section here in this website that provides you with those exact numbers. So if there's any question in terms of where you fall within this term, this measurement, then you'll be able to see that. And it's a scale because it's also based on the size of your household, right? Certainly, this relief is based on the COVID-19 pandemic. And so therefore, it is for those who have been impacted through loss of income due to COVID-19 and then therefore unable to pay rent. And so therefore, those who are applying in order to be eligible should either be receiving unemployment benefits or experience a reduction in income or experience financial hardship due directly and indirectly to COVID-19, which made it impossible in order to meet your rent obligations, okay? And this could be one or more members of your household and be currently responsible for paying rent at your primary residence. There are frequently asked questions here that provide much more detail. Last week, we were able to view the landlord info and FAQs. This week, of course, we will now enter into the tenant frequently asked questions. I suspect we will get some of these asked tonight, but I will quickly review this so then we can make our way to the tenant application and then have time for questions. Again, many questions we anticipate can be answered here. So we want to provide you this walkthrough so you become familiar with this page and know that you can get many, many answers to your questions here at this resource without having to connect to someone directly, although that is an option as well in this third round. So your frequently asked questions. Again, it gets a little bit more into detail in terms of who is eligible exactly. Remember, we talked about the income measurement. And so there's a chart here based on the number of persons in the household where your income would fall on the area median income scale. What documents you'll need to apply for assistance. So again, you can come here and view all of what's needed prior to applying. One of the conveniences, however, is in the event that you're not 100% absolutely ready with all documents, or you thought you were ready and still started an application, you will register and then be able to return to your application as long as the application period remains in effect, which is again through September 10th of this year. And so again, you'll take a look at documents needed. If you have questions regarding which documents can be used beyond what's provided here, again, you can also get assistance, get questions answered at your the call center, as well as at your community-based organizations if you choose to use that resource. Also, covering how exactly do you apply for assistance. And so again, there's this portal, talks about it opening today, in which it has. You'll see this call center number prominently throughout this website, as it should be, as this is a great resource. And now on to a number of other frequently asked questions that get much more detailed. And so I'm showing you this so you'll know what types of information you get at this website and at the call center, right? Everything from whether or not you can still apply if you've received social services in the past, what exactly the assistance pays for, if you pay with a housing benefit, like an income restricted affordable complex, can you still apply? If you have a roommate, can you both apply? What is the deadline? Who in the household can apply for assistance? What if you have a baby and they are included on your lease? Would you be eligible to meet some but not all of the eligibility requirements? Can you apply? How much will you get if approved for assistance? If you're approved for assistance, how long will it take to receive the money? What happens if your landlord declines to participate in the program, which is something that we'll certainly put great emphasis on during the application process and make sure that everyone's clear on your options as a renter, a tenant. And if you've been experiencing illegal eviction activity at your residence, what should you do? One of the things that we just want to make note of is that we have been able to enjoy an eviction moratorium due to COVID-19. And so therefore, no resident should have been evicted. However, if you've been subjected to what's considered illegal activity, in lieu of that moratorium, we have resources available and we will review that all during this walkthrough. So how about we proceed onto the tenant application? And of course, this application can be accessed from any of the tenant application links that you see here, highlighted in blue with white. So everyone should be able to see this landing page. I am going to scroll down just to show you what resources are available on the page. And at the very bottom, we see 4 different areas here. The first one is program details, right? These details, again, are for the most part, much of what we just covered in the FAQs and at the nocovid19.com website. And there's also an opportunity to get program details for landlords. So again, last week provided a how-to for landlords. That information remains here on this landing page. And so whether you're a landlord or a tenant, you will land at this page and you will select where you want to go based on your status, landlord or tenant. And so as we go back to the previous page, we have the opportunity to, again, register as a landlord. And also we can go to the Get Help page. Again, one for tenants and landlords, but this also, again, tells you about the call center resource, the telephone number, and clicking this button here takes you back to nocovid19.com. So as you can see, a lot of the information is redundant. It's in a number of places. That is to make sure that it is convenient for all those who are using the portal. Provides a number of points of access for critical information. So last week we registered as a landlord. This week, of course, we're going to apply as a renter. And so what we will do is we will click on the Apply Now. So assuming this is your very first time visiting this application, what we will do is we will register. Again, registering will allow you to leave the application and come back at some point in the future in order to make adjustments, amendments. This can all be done, again, up through the end of the application close, which will be September 10th. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to register. So I'm going to enter email. In this case, I'm going to be renter1@gmail.com. I'm going to enter a username. In this case, I will be rentseeker1. And my password, there's no need for me to say that during this section. But of course, you'll choose whatever works for you. In the event that your password is deficient, you'll see a message pop up that tells you that you should provide one uppercase, one special character, same as is done for security purposes at most websites now when you're required to register. So what we'll do is I'll click register. All right, now, once I click the registration button, what will then happen is I should be able to see the basic information that I entered. And before I tend to that, what I'm going to need to do is to now access that email account where I just registered in order to confirm registration. Again, we want to make sure that for security purposes, that the information that is entered indeed, in fact, belongs to the person creating the account. One of the things that I want to make sure you all are aware of is the fact that applying for this program is free, all right? And one-on-one application assistance is available through our community-based partners as well as through the ERAP call center. So no one should be paying any amounts, any fees in order to complete an application, all right? We want to make sure that that's clear for everyone. After you've confirmed your email address, it'll tell you your email has been confirmed successfully. The one thing about it is you can take your time with the system in this application. Again, if there's an error made, if your application, what you enter is incomplete, you can always come back and make adjustments. Again, remember that once you're registered and your email is confirmed, you are You now have an account set up and you're good to go. So what we'll do now is let's confirm a number of things. First, I have my information listed, the fact that I am not a landlord. Very important to make sure that you select that as the option as you're submitting a tenant application, and also your preferred language, which should already be loaded in the system. We'll update. Once that happens, we can now go to the second portion of this process. So in essence, there will be two major pages that you visit, right? So there's a combination registration page, which will allow you to confirm and update all of your information. And then you'll take a look at the top of this bar, and it will enable you to apply as a renter. Now, in the event that you're registered and you'd like to return to the application, of course, you would just go back to manage existing application. And so as we move forward with the application, which is divided into 5 sections, I will note that this application is much shorter than previous applications. And so we hope that you'll find it a lot easier. First section here is qualifying criteria. So we just want to take a look at some of the items that are designed for you to check off and confirm. Here on the left, here on the right of the screen are what we consider to be required documents, all right? And so throughout this process, you will see me upload and provide my documents and provide important information along the way. So qualifying criteria. First, a quick few checks. Which of the following apply to you? All may not apply to renters, and so applicants. And so checking off all those items that apply to you will help us determine if you are eligible. So first one is, are you a resident of a particular participating county? Absolutely. If you're a Newark resident, then you will check that particular box. Currently responsible for paying rent on your primary residence. We will check that. Remember, that is one of the eligibility requirements that we already saw at NewarkCovid19.com. Is the landlord a family member who lives on the property? This is an important question because one of the things that landlords will ask is whether or not the unit in which rent relief is being sought is also a unit that they live in, which is what we're trying to avoid. So we want to make sure we avoid that. So for this, as long as the landlord does not reside in the same unit as you, the applicant, then you do not have to check off that box, all right? I have experienced since March 13th, a reduction of loss of income, unemployment, financial hardship due to COVID-19. Yes, which is why we're applying and why we're eligible for this. If you're struggling with housing instability, like being past due on rent or utilities or risk of eviction, we will be allowing you to enter information on utilities, although utility payments are not what we're awarding for this round. However, it will enable us to kind of get a sense of the larger landscape of need. And we will also be able to provide you with information for how to get utility assistance. There are other resources throughout the city of Newark. And so we will check yes, because we are struggling with housing instability. We're a number of months behind on rent, and that's what we will attest to during this application. We meet the income requirements for this program. And again, we're able to check against the chart to make sure that based on the number of individuals in our household, we do not exceed the 80% AMI level. So as long as we are under that threshold, we are eligible. And for this particular circumstance, we already filed an income tax return. So what we're going to do is for 2020, what we're going to do is now save and continue. it should be processing. What we're going to do now is go to the next section, which is basic information. So this information, it already has my name here. Do I have a social security number? I do. Social security number, green card, or international tax ID number. And so in the event that you have a social security number, you would enter it. If not, green card numbers are acceptable or I-10s are acceptable as well. So in this case, I'm going to enter my social security number, which in this case would be 987-654-321. My date of birth, for this case, I will enter something made up. This will be 11, let's say 12, let's say 1980. I'm not now going to enter, let's consider my race. These questions, again, these funds are sourced from the US Treasury. And as such, in order to ensure equitable distribution or so that the federal government and all of us engaged in dispersing these funds can have a way to gauge and determine exactly who these funds are reaching. I will just enter this basic information. My phone number will be 123-456-790, right? That'll be my phone number. When I enter a location, which will be, in this case, I'm making up 123 Main Street. Now, what's very important is that I make sure that if I live in a dwelling that has more than one unit, that I identify that unit. This is very important, particularly as landlords enter, as they register, they will register for each unit in which they own and they are seeking rental relief. And so in order to match up these applications, it'll be extremely helpful in order to enter the unit number. Also, once that happens, we'll be able to match up your application with the registration that your landlord may have entered or will enter should they register within this system. And so the question here is, what was my total 2020 adjusted gross income? Now this tells you exactly where this will be found on your federal tax forms, kind of provides you with that information. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert a number. Are there people in my household who are not shown on my lease? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer yes for that. And in the event, and the reason why I'm going to do that is because in this case, I'm going to be the only adult in a household, but there are children, there are minors that reside with me who are not necessarily, in the event they're not listed on a lease, then I will want to make sure that they are accounted for based on household size. So remember, income eligibility is based on your household size, and we want to make sure that we account for each member of your household, whether they be an adult or a minor. In this case, I know that I am 7 months behind, right? So I'm 7 months in arrears. You'll see what's in parentheses. Please confirm with your landlord. The reason why that is listed there, of course, we want to make sure we ensure accuracy, particularly for when your landlord registers. But it's very important that, again, these are challenging times, and we want to make sure that landlords and tenants are communicating so that whenever possible, we can be efficient with getting funds out to you quickly. And the quickest way to do that is to a landlord. We want to make sure that your information is as accurate as possible. So if you are not sure, we strongly suggest you coordinate with your landlord in order to make sure that you are both on the same page and that what you're submitting is accurate. The total amount past due. Now, in this case, I pay $1,100 per month, $1,100. So over the course of 7 months, that would be $7,700. So I'm in arrears. I'm behind on rent, 7 months, $1,100 per month. That comes out to $7,700. To your knowledge, has your landlord filed to evict? You do the non-payment of rent. It may be yes if you are aware, no, or it may be you don't know. You're not sure either way. You haven't received notice. There's been no communication. In the event that this question does not apply at all, it's not applicable, then you would select not applicable. But let's say no in this case. Do you have any following utility bills that are past due? Any adult in your household? Again, this would be merely to help us understand the needs as far as utilities are concerned. In the event that this applies to you, please select yes, and then you would be able to provide just a couple more bits of additional information. Are you currently receiving other rental subsidies, rental assistance, government assistance? Now, this is a very important question because although these funds are accessible to many more people, many more categories of tenants in need of rental assistance from previous rounds, what we want to make sure we do is that we do not duplicate funding. So if you received rental assistance from previous rounds, please do answer that question with yes. Now, what that does is it does not disqualify you from getting assistance through this round. We just want to make sure that the assistance you've received is accounted for and that we avoid providing payment for duplicate months, right? So remember, we're 7 months behind. We may have been behind some additional months, but maybe we received monies from a previous round of Newark Emergency Rental Assistance, or from Essex County Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or State of New Jersey Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And so, we want to make sure that we list that. So for example, based on those categories, let's say I'm going to list, yes, New Jersey State ERAP, and quite possibly it was some other type of social service. And so I'll just choose those 2 options. Again, providing those options does not disqualify you. It just helps us ensure that there's no duplication of funds. And so are you currently receiving any source of income? You may not. If no, then you select no. If yes, please select yes, and then we will save and continue. So this takes us on to the 3rd section, which is program eligibility. And we're going to move through it because I want to make sure that there's time for Q&A. Program eligibility. So have you or a member of your household experienced a reduction or loss of income after March 13th? And so the answer is yes. How were you impacted by COVID-19? Please check all that apply. So was it a furlough, let go, business closure, reduction in hours, loss of child support? Answer yes. Inability to, or reduced ability to work due to COVID-19, loss of child care, closures requiring a stay at home. And so you can see the categories, the ways in which we help you identify how you were impacted. And of course you would answer yes or no, or no to as many of these as possible. Again, this helps us understand exactly how you were impacted by COVID-19. It also lists some of the categories in which you can respond affirmatively to let us know. So again, this has everything to do from increased childcare expenses to increased medical expenses due to COVID. In what month were your household finances impacted as a result of COVID? So what I'm going to do is I am going to go back to December 1st of 2020, as we are seeking 7 months worth of background. Have you or contributing member 18 or over qualify for receive unemployment compensation within the last 90 days? We will say yes to that. Are you currently employed? We will have unemployed receiving unemployment benefits. Again, you will respond based on what applies to you. So one of the things we also want to provide is, again, we want to provide as much help and assistance as possible as we look to recover and provide housing stability for our residents. There's a question here: would you be interested in receiving information to assist you in your job search? So if you indicate yes, we can send you information about employment opportunities and resources here in the city of Newark. And so we can respond to that. Total number of household people in my household, including me. Now, the reason why there's no numbers there, because we want to enter folks in our household. And so in order to do so, remember I mentioned that there's me as a single adult and I have minors. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to add those minors. So Newark Renter Jr. is one of those minors, and he's 3. And the relationship is child. Income earner, no, it's not an earner at 3. Age 3. I'm going to add another household member. Let's say Newark Renter daughter, age 11, relationship child. And so now if you notice, total number of people in your household, including myself, is 3, right? So since I've entered those additional people, those minors, in addition to myself, there are 3 in my household. And now what I will do is I will begin to upload documents. And again, these things are things that we're told are required prior to our entering the application. Hopefully you'll have those things ready prior to, but if not, again, you can always save your application and then come back to those. If there are any questions regarding the documents, there's the call center as well as the community-based organizations. And so what we will do is provide a couple things here. So the first thing I'm going to add is proof of identity. I want to prove that I am who I have entered. And so there are a number of means to do that: driver's license, New Jersey ID card, passport. Of course, we also have the Newark ID, right? We have our own city ID here. Many of those things will suffice. You can certainly call the call center or speak to your community-based organization in order to determine if some other form of ID that you have will suffice as well. So I'm going to add that as a file. And wow, you see all that, so that's great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the driver's license. I have all these things saved. One of the great things about what we're doing in this round, in this system is that, whether you have access to a printer or a copier or not, you can simply take photos of the images. So you can take a photo of the ID that you plan to submit and upload it to the system that way. I'm going to go with proof of household. So in other words, I just submitted my ID, and of course, there were two minors that I mentioned. There's certain things that I could upload: birth certificate, a school record, immunization record, which lists those minors in order to prove that, in fact, they reside with me. So proof of household. The next issue would be proof of residency or rental obligation. So this could be your original full or lease agreement, but whatever you submit, it should list the following categories of information here, right? And so I am going to upload that. One of the things that I want to mention is that this system also uses artificial intelligence, which means that we would very much like for you to submit the documents requested. However, again, if that is a challenge for you, it may be alternatives that you could provide instead. What happens with each one of these sets of documents is the system will use artificial intelligence to read your documentation, right? To determine if it's sufficient, if it's adequate, and if it is not, you're asking for a lease. Tenant lease agreement. Then what will happen is the system will review that information using artificial intelligence, and it will send you an automated communication telling you whether or not what you submitted is sufficient. And if your application is deficient, it'll tell you what items, any of these, that you will need to submit. And it'll give you a timetable to do it. Any event that information has not been submitted by then, you will then have automated follow-up communications that come in addition to what may be communication from a community-based organization. Will not be required to upload information regarding past utilities, unless you choose to do so, because again, we will not be providing utility funds this round. We'll look to provide proof of income. In this case, I have my IRS file 1040 completed. And so therefore, I was able to upload that. If there are any additional documents, I could also upload those as well. Any documents that support my application. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is that, again, we may be providing additional months rent beyond back rent, up to 3 months. And there'll be you can provide comments on the application in terms of exactly what your situation is. We'll also be taking a look at certain categories of residents based on data and those that we know are in great need of prospective rent. And so if you take a look, we've uploaded all of the required documents. We're going to click save and continue. We moved on now to landlord information. And so what we like to do at this point is confirm the landlord's contact information. We have landlord email address and also the ability to put the landlord's phone number. The landlord's email address is strongly preferred as the most efficient means of communication. I had already entered this information. If you know your landlord's email address and phone number, it's great. If not, again, we hope that the lines of communication are open so that you can enter that information. Then what you do is you confirm that all of your information is in the system properly, and that the landlord is in fact the landlord of this particular, remember, specific unit. If there are multiple units, you want to specify, in terms of which unit you're seeking relief for. As again, if there are a number of units, we want to make sure that we are specific. And so with that being said, we will confirm. This will process, and it tells us that we are done. Time to submit. So, based on what we submitted, we may be eligible. One of the things that you will receive will be an email confirmation that your application has been submitted. We want to make certain attestations. You want to attest to a number of items here. This information is truthful and accurate to the best of your knowledge. What we will do now is we will submit an electronic signature. Just want to mention one thing, that the name that you entered has to match. And so this is case sensitive. And so if you have a capital letter, you want to make sure that you enter a capital letter within what is designed to be the signature as well. All right. This says your application has successfully been submitted. You will receive a confirmation email shortly. And so what will then happen is you will then move on to submit your payment information. Now, again, what we ask for is that landlords register, and therefore we can quickly match those landlords to those rental applications for quick disbursement. One of the unique things about this round is that in the event that landlords do not register, there's still ways for a renter to receive rent payment directly. And so what will happen is that there will be one more field at the end of this application that will ask you as a renter to input your information. And so if you have a bank account, if you are banked, you'll want to have that information handy, as a preferred method of disbursement of payment is via ACH, electronic payments. You'll be required to, of course, enter your name as is listed on the bank account, along with the bank routing number, as well as your specific account number. In the event that you do not have a bank account, right, you're unbanked, you do not have a financial institution to enter, you can choose the check option, receiving a check option that you'll see, and then click submit, which will then let us know that worst case scenario, in the event we're not able to connect with your landlord and get your landlord registered and you are eligible, that you still have the means to receive rent payments directly. So that option does exist with this application. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing because I want to make sure that we get in at least 20 minutes worth of questions. I hope that walking through that, I answered many questions that you would have had. And given the amount of time that we have, in the event that we have questions that we've answered, I'm going to go through those quickly. But again, your number one resource is NorCovid19.com for those answers, as well as the call center, as well as community-based organizations for tenant applicants. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the more than capable Newark People's Assembly for questions and answers. Thank you for bearing with me, folks.
Thanks, Jaraz. Such great information. And I just want to thank the attendees again for joining us and just being willing and wanting the information. So first, I want to give a formal thank you to Mayor Baraka and, of course, the Municipal Council for just having this opportunity for the residents, approving the money to be spent and, going back in the hands of the actual people. And then, of course, a special thank you to Deputy Mayor, Director Ladd, Janine, and Gerard, your team, for just the implementation of it all. So thank you for your hard work and just all that you've been doing since the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now just to ensure that residents have this assistance, because the funding is definitely needed throughout the community. So of course you went through all of the entire application and gave this great information. So some of the stuff, of course, will be repeated, and folks don't want to go online and go to the FAQ sheet. You know, they want their questions to be answered directly. So so there are a couple like really, really good ones that I think would benefit the whole group. So the first, and I'm going to read them in order as they came. So the first is, can landlords add late fees twice if you pay partial?
Yeah, so great question. We covered this during the landlord how to apply session, so I'm glad it came up during this session as well. So a landlord that registers for this grant opportunity is going to do something very important before they're able to complete their registration, right? And that is that they are going to sign a landlord agreement. And that landlord agreement has terms that are designed to, again, help make the landlord whole and at the same time provide a protection for the tenant. And so one of the things that the landlord will agree to in this process is not to charge fees. And so in other words, this grant will be for rent, right? Not for security deposits, not for late fees, not for anything other than rent. And the landlord is agreeing that they will accept these funds and know that these funds will be applied to rent and not to other fees, and that this will make the tenant current and again avoid the eviction process. So hope that answers the question.
And so for those of you who do not know me, my name is Jennifer Fana. I am the administrative assistant for the North People's Assembly. So Andrea and myself will be taking turns asking questions. So thank you so much, Dara. So the next question is, and you, again, once again, you have reiterated this information, but if you can share, how do I speak to someone over the phone? If you can share that phone number with the audience.
Yeah, so there are two ways. And if you give me a second, what I will do is I will display that for everyone. So the first way is going to be to call the call center, right? So the call center is that is the best resource that you'll have without visiting a community-based organization. And so for the call center, that number is, and I'll be able to display it in a second, but the call center's number is 866-484-9033. So again, that's 866-484-9033. And I have to put this up so that everyone can see it and write it down and use it. And here you'll be able to get two bits of information. Well, a number of bits of information, but primarily all the information and details you need to know about the program itself and the offering. And then the other thing that you'll get is actual assistance walking through the application. So the same way that I just walked through the application, the call center will do that as well, right? And so again, I'm going to provide that in 1 second. But again, the number for those listening, 866-484-9033.
And I added it to the chat. I did add it to the Facebook chat.
All right. So everybody can see this? All right. ERAP call center, Emergency Rental Assistance Program call center, 866-484-9033. You'll be able to access someone live and in person. That will be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call center reps speak English, Spanish, and Portuguese.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gerard. So I'm glad you put that on the screen because someone asked earlier if this was the same as an ERAP grant, and I had no idea. So I said, okay, I'll ask it. But now seeing it, I'm assuming it means Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so yes, it is the same to answer that question. Next question was regarding commercial properties. So are we allowing, or can the funding be used for commercial properties?
Yeah, so this funding is for residential properties only. I do want to mention though, is that, these forms are important because we get questions from the community. Obviously, many people have been affected by COVID-19 over the past year and a half. And so we are taking a look at ways as well in order to provide relief to as many members of the community as we possibly can. And so, as you all know, we also are in receipt of and plan to hopefully receive more emergency rescue plan funds. And so we appreciate the feedback and the questions because we use these to inform how we might be able to provide relief using the dollars that we get that are designed to help our residents. Given that we have an equity lens and an equity focus, we want to make sure that we are able to assist as many Newark stakeholders as possible, whether they be residents or business owners. This particular round, again, this is purely residential, but we do hear you, and we hope to be able to provide some type of resources in the future. It's not guaranteed, but we'll certainly be working on it. We do hear you. So thanks for that question.
Gerard, and what is the turnaround after an application is submitted?
Yes, so great question. Previous rounds, we might have taken a little longer than we wanted to. So the program is designed in such a way that, again, we have a vendor who's providing this application, artificial intelligence, they're automating things. We have community-based organizations to assist and make sure that folks get completed applications in. We want to make sure that we're able to provide payments between 30 and no later than 60 days. We think that we can get applications in closer toward the 30, but it also depends on the information that applicants submit to us. So if documentation information is provided in a way that does not require us to assess and reassess and reach out to request additional information, then we can go ahead and make this an efficient process. Also, there's a value to landlords who register in the process as well, because once a landlord is matched to a unit for a resident that is requesting rental assistance, then those payments can be made much quicker. And so, again, we're looking to get things out as close to 30 days as possible, up to 60, but a lot of that depends on how much legwork we have to do on the back end based on what is submitted.
So that's definitely music to a lot of applicants' ears to not have a long drawn out process. And when you mentioned landlords, it made me think of a question that I was asked previously, and I'm not sure if I asked it formally or not. So are landlords able to apply without the assistance of the renter?
So the answer to that is no. So within this round, a landlord cannot apply for assistance without a renter or a tenant applying, right? We want to make sure that that there's an actual renter who's in distress, and we need to know what that person's circumstances are. As this grant, although landlords are allowed to register and encouraged to register, this is a tenant-based program. It's designed to provide relief for tenants. With that being said, although a landlord can register and then not receive payment if a renter doesn't apply, a renter may apply without a landlord register. And so the preference is, and we strongly encourage landlords to register, so that way we can, again, quickly match landlords with residents and get those payments out quickly, right? So they're closer to the 30 days that I mentioned. However, we did learn from the earlier rounds, as well as the federal government, that tenants were having difficulties getting some landlords to participate. And there are a whole host of reasons that we think that to be the case. Nonetheless, we wanted a way to get money directly in the hands of tenants in the event that landlords do not cooperate. And so there is a relief option, a way for renters to get rental assistance without landlords registering, but landlords cannot register and get rental assistance without renters applying. So I hope that answers that.
So just a follow-up to that, because I remember when I was speaking to a constituent directly, they were saying that the tenant purposely, like is behind on the rent, not moving out thanks to the pandemic protections that were in place, and just wasn't paying. So, they were just being obnoxious toward, and, in that case. And so for the next question, if you're already receiving some type of subsidy, like a Section 8, are you eligible to apply?
Yes, you are. And so that's why one of the questions on the application was whether or not you're receiving some other type of social service, and that was listed. However, of course, the purpose of this is to, meet the needs of rent you're not able to pay due to COVID. And so therefore, for example, if we have subsidized housing where tenants are required to pay a certain percentage of the rent portion and the federal government pays the rest, then what these funds will do is help the tenant pay the tenant portion of those fees, since the federal government is already paying a portion of those fees. So this is something that's allowable under this round as opposed to previous rounds. However, I will strongly recommend that if a tenant is receiving a rental subsidy, specifically I'll name Section 8, that there's also another relief option, and that is that tenant to contact the Newark Housing Authority, right, which is our local HUD office, in order to get relief from the amount of the portion that that tenant might have to pay. So if you've been impacted by COVID-19 and your income has been reduced, then informing Newark Housing Authority that that is the case might then reduce the portion that you're required to pay, and the federal government will then increase the portion that it pays in order to meet the obligation that you're not able to pay. And so that is the request. But yes, if you are receiving other subsidies, you still can qualify. Again, if you've also received some other type of rental assistance in the past, you may still qualify. We just want to make sure that we're not paying for the same periods of time that have already been paid for, because obviously the rent would not be needed for those time periods.
Thank you so much, Gerard. We had a couple of technical questions, and I want to just go over those scenarios to see. I did ask the guests if they can expand on how they stumble against this type of technical, but they didn't. So one person put, I tried opening, I put my information in and still wouldn't open.
Right, so I'm assuming this is a tenant?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to assume that when they say opening, I'm assuming they mean the application. And by opening the application, I assume they mean after 9 a.m. today, because it would have been closed prior to. Any technical issues, you can feel free to please call the call center. That's what they are available for. We are able to monitor and get stats on a daily basis. In fact, here at the city, we're able to see information is updated every hour. And so one of the things that we like to do in order to ensure quality control is to get these updates. The call center is excellent, not only in terms of providing information and application assistance, but also real-time information to us so that we can assist. But any event you encounter any technical difficulties, please, I'm going to put it up again. Please reach out to the call center. ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program Call Center, 866-484-9033. Again, you'll be able to speak to a live person Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
And then I will also answer the other technical question. This guest received a access denied. So someone said, you probably didn't register. So do you have to register in order to access the application?
So yes, the very first thing you need to do is register. As you saw during the demo, my name was in the top right of the screen. That is because I confirm that I am in fact who I say I am, and we have established a means of communication. And that means of communication will then allow me to receive a whole host of notices that'll come directly as a result of what I've entered into the online application. So any event that you're not able to get through, please call this number. It is really I said the NorCovid19.com page is the one-stop shop. This is an additional one-stop shop for technical questions like the ones you just asked. I see we have a few minutes left. If it's okay, I wanted to kind of address a question that was asked during the landlord session, but was a tenant question. So, and that was a question of whether or not a tenant who receives payment directly, right? Given that, the tenants can receive rental assistance directly if landlords are not cooperative or unresponsive, whether or not they receive some type of official document. And the answer is yes. So anyone who receives any amount over $600 as a result of their applying through this program and getting relief will receive an IRS form 1099, and that will be sent in January. So that is correct. Whether you're a landlord or a tenant, if you receive more than $600 in assistance through this program, you will receive a form 1099 from us next January. Hope that addresses that.
You sort of stole my thunder.
Sorry.
Because that actually was my last question, but okay. I have one more. Okay. But actually, before we move off of that question and to that point of the tenant actually getting paid, now what protections are in place either for the landlord or for us being the city that the tenant doesn't just cash the check and not pay the rent?
So basically this round will rely on self-attestation, meaning one of the things that I checked off on that long list on the last page was the fact that they agree and intend to use that rent in order to use the award in order to pay for rent. I will, but this takes me back to another point. I know we're getting short on time. This takes me back to why I strongly encourage landlords to register. Because if a landlord does not register or does not agree to the landlord agreement, then one of the things that landlord is forfeiting is his or her right, or that business entity's right to not only receive direct rental assistance, but to be informed that the tenant received the rental assistance. So there's no obligation for the program to make that landlord aware that the tenant received a payment. And so we strongly encourage and highly recommend landlords to register.
So Jen, I'm gonna pass the last question over to you before we close out.
Of course, thank you so much. This question is a little tricky, but someone inquired about illegal tenants in basements. Can they apply for relief?
So I don't know if this is the landlord asking, but the fact that it's illegal, I would imagine that means there's no rent. I mean, there's no lease, no legal recognizable rental lease agreement. And if that's the case, then they wouldn't be able to prove that they are in fact a tenant and then be able to receive relief. So I hope that answers that.
Yes, so Jen, did you have a follow-up question?
Nope, that is it for me.
Okay, and Gerard, did you have any final thoughts, summaries that you wanted to share?
Just two things, and of course, I want to reiterate where folks can get information, but we didn't necessarily have as many financial questions, but I wanted to acknowledge my colleague, Janine Hazard-Williams, who is Senior Manager here of the Office of Housing and Finance, Department of Economic and Housing Development, who has been working closely with me on this effort. And so we've been working to bring this assistance as a team. I always say team EHD. And so although she was not necessarily required to answer the questions tonight, she has been here in the event that we needed to her expertise in responding to them. The great thing is she helped me prepare very well, so we didn't necessarily need to go directly to her. So I wanted to acknowledge her. Of course, the mayor and his leadership, the deputy mayor, and all those community-based organizations who are working to assist us in this effort. Again, 3 primary resources that folks have. NordCovid19.com, answer all questions. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program call center at 866-484-9033. And finally, there are community-based organizations that exist throughout the 5 wards that are listed at the NordCovid19.com website that can also assist in person. And so we just thank you for the opportunity for us to address you, to provide the service. And we want to make sure that we provide assistance to Newark's most vulnerable populations. We want to make sure that as we recover, we do so in an equitable way. And of course, last but not least, I want to thank you, Andrea and Jennifer, for your work with the Newark People's Assembly.
Well, we definitely appreciate just being able to host the Q&A. This is what Newark People's Assembly is all about, getting the suggestions, opinions, comments from the community at large, and just making the administration and whatever the respective departments are aware. So we thank you for the just allowing us to be a part of it. So without further ado, I'll just say for everyone to have a great night. Again, thank the panelists. Thank, of course, the IT team who makes the connections happen, from Zoom to Facebook, and then the Newark TV team who then transfers everything over to the government access channel. So we appreciate each of you for that, and just have a good night. Have a safe rest of your summer. Back together again, get out, vaccinate, mask up, all that good stuff. Thank you, Jerron team.
Thank you.
Thanks,
good night, everyone.
Jen.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.